How to wash clothes without a washing machine. Washing clothes by hand typically uses less energy and water than washing machines, and may be less likely to cause damage. It's also a handy skill to know if you're traveling without access to a wash machine, or if your power goes out. Welcome to Best Choices. This video will tell you how to washing normal clothing by hand, and washing and drying wool or delicate clothing. Now let's get started. Method 1. Washing normal clothing by hand. Number 1. Separate the white and colored clothing, recommended. Washing clothes by hand usually involves lower temperatures and less agitation than most washing machines, so there is less risk of color bleeding. It can still occur, however, so separating white and light pastel clothing from darker colored clothing is recommended. Separate out wool, cashmere, silk, lace, and any other delicate clothing from your other laundry. Wash these items using the instructions for delicate clothing in a separate load. Number 2. Lay the clothes in a clean container. If you don't have a large washing tub or bucket, you can thoroughly clean a sink or bathtub and place the clothes in there, spreading them out evenly. The less full the container is, the easier it will be to wash. If you have too many clothes to wash at once, consider keeping a second clean bucket nearby to store clean, wet clothes while you finish washing the rest of the load. If you are only washing a couple small articles of clothing, you may only need a large bowl. Number 3. Treat serious stains with a pre-wash stain remover or soap. If your clothing has a stain that has dyed the fabric, such as a stain from mustard or ink, rub a little stain remover cleaning product over the affected area, or use soap if you do not have any stain remover. Let the clothing sit for at least 5 minutes before continuing. Number 4. Fill the bucket with lukewarm water. Fill until the water level is about 1-2 inches, 2.5-5 centimeters above the level of the clothing. Unless the clothing is both sturdy and heavily soiled, do not use hot water. Lukewarm or even room temperature water will work fine for most laundry loads, and reduces the chance of damaging or color bleeding. If you are not certain whether an article of clothing can be washed in warm water, play it safe and use cool water instead. Number 5. Add laundry detergent. If you are using a bucket or sink, you likely only need 1 to 2 teaspoons, 5-10 milliliters mild detergent or washing powder. If you have enough clothing to require a bathtub, use 4 tablespoons, 60 milliliters instead, or follow the instruction on the package. If your detergent is not labeled mild, or if you have sensitive skin, wear rubber gloves to prevent rashes or itching. Number 6. Let the clothing soak. The detergent will take time to work, so leave the tub of water alone for at least 20 minutes. If your clothing has a significant amount of dirt or stains, you may wish to leave it for up to an hour. Number 7. Swish the clothing around in the water. Using either your hands or a simple agitator tool, move the clothing gently around in the water. Press the clothing against the bottom or sides until suds emerge, but try not to scrub or twist it, as this could stretch the clothes. Do this for about 2 minutes, or until the clothing is clean. Number 8. Rinse repeatedly in new, cool water. Empty the water from the container, and fill with cool water. Continue moving the clothing around in the same way, pressing to remove the soap suds. After a couple of minutes, drain again and repeat an additional 1 or 2 times. Once no soap suds are visible when the clothing is moved or pressed, the clothes are ready to dry. If you are filling the container from a faucet, you may start rinsing before it's full by holding clothing in the running water. Number 9. Wring and dry the clothing. Twist each article of clothing to remove most of the water, or send it through a hand-cranked wringer if you have one. If you are not using a dryer, hang the clothing on a clothes horse, clothesline, or the backs of chairs and banisters. Make sure the clothing is spread out evenly, and that articles of clothing don't overlap with other. If a wet area is hidden by other clothing or a bunched up area of fabric, it will take much longer to dry. Keep in mind that wet clothing will drip, and may leave a stain on hardwood or upholstery if draped directly on it. On a sunny day, your clothes should dry within a few hours. If you do not have sun, dry in a warm, ventilated room. Number 10. Consider buying or making an agitator. It's not difficult to wash a load of laundry without any tools, but it can be tedious. If you plan to wash all your laundry by hand, especially towels, jeans, and other heavy items of clothing, you may wish to use a handheld agitator, which is simply a plastic tool useful for pressing and moving the clothes. If you cannot find one in a store, look online or make your own by cutting a few holes in the rubber of a brand new plunger. Note, you may use these instructions whether or not you have an agitator. Did this video help you? Let's comment below, yes or no. Method 2. Washing and drying wool or delicate clothing. Number 1. Fill a container with cool water. If you are only washing a few pieces of clothing, you only need enough water to submerge them one at a time. You may use a washing tub or bucket, or scrub a sink clean and put in a stopper. Some delicate clothing may be damaged by warm water, so only use cool unless the clothing is heavily stained. Alternatively, if you only have a couple pieces of lingerie or other small items, bring them into a cool or lukewarm shower. Number 2. If your water is hard, add a little borax or baking soda. Hard water leaves a white, mineral residue on pipes, sinks, and dishes after heavy use. If this happens with your water, counteract this effect on delicate clothing by stirring in a spoonful of powdered borax. Baking soda is less effective, but has a similar ability to soften water. Number 3. Add a tiny amount of mild soap. Mix in a few drops of extra mild detergent or soap, stirring until a few suds are visible. If you are not sure whether your detergent is mild, baby shampoo is a good option, and normal shampoo is suitable. Number 4. Measure wool or cashmere clothing before washing. Material that can absorb a great deal of water, most notably wool and cashmere, will typically change size and shape in the wash. This can be counteracted by drying it in the correct position, but in order to do this you will need to know the correct size of the clothing. Measure a sweater's width at the neck, shoulders, and base. Measure the length of the sleeves. Make a rough sketch labeled with your measurements for sweaters or other articles of clothing that require several measurements. Number 5. Gently press each article of clothing under the water. Some materials, such as silk or elastic, will last longer if you minimize the amount of time it spends soaking, so try not to spend more than a few minutes on each item unless there is still visible dirt on the clothing. Swish gently back and forth, pressing or squeezing lightly. Number 6. Rinse the clothing. Squeeze out the soapy water by balling up the article of clothing and compressing gently. Dip it in clean water without soap, then squeeze it again. Repeat until no suds are visible when you squeeze. Number 7. Learn how to dry wool or cashmere clothing. Lay out a large, white towel and arrange your article of clothing on top of it. Refer to your measurements from before washing and gently tug the clothing into its original shape. Roll up the towel around the item in this shape, then press the towel to remove excess moisture. Place the towel on a water-safe surface away from heat, unroll it, and leave the clothing to dry on top of the towel. A colored towel may stain wet wool or cashmere. After a few hours, if the clothing is not yet dry, flip it over or transfer to a dry towel. Number 8. Dry other delicate clothing on a clothesline or clothes horse. You may use the low or delicate setting on a dryer, but the best way to maintain the longevity of your delicate clothing is to air dry it. Place it on a clothesline or clothes horse in a sunny area, or at least a slightly warm and ventilated area. Avoid applying direct heat, such as with a hair dryer or heater surface, as this may warp the clothing. Tips: 1. Use all used water, except water containing bleach or other harsh compounds, to irrigate your gardens or lawn. The soap in the water will lessen the surface tension of the planting medium and will provide deep watering of plant roots. 2. Instead of washing powder, you can also use soap cubes and rub them on the wet clothes to clean off dirt. Warnings: 1. Do not use a brush or agitator for delicate clothing. 2. Do not dry clothing directly on a heater or other heat source, as this could start a fire. 3. Bleach may irritate your skin, and is not recommended for hand washing. If laundry is heavily soiled and cannot be cleaned by ordinary detergent, add 1/2 the recommended amount of bleach and wear rubber gloves while washing. Use color-safe bleach for colored clothes to prevent discoloration. Did this video help you? Let's comment below, yes or no.